Arthur Bookwormington here, and you just interrupted me reading a book, which makes sense because this is our book club. And on the book club today, we're going to be having a look at The Spooks Apprentice by Joseph Delaney. The Spooks Apprentice is the first book in the Wardstone Chronicles. It is called that for some reason, I don't know. No one actually calls it the Wardstone Chronicles. Most people I know just call it the Spooks books because all of them have the word spook in the title. But regardless, it is the first book of this series. Released in 2004, it was one of Joseph Delaney's first works. Now, if you were living in a place that is not Europe or Australia, or perhaps some other places, I'm not entirely sure. In fact, if you're just living in the US, this is called The Last Apprentice, for some strange reason I am not sure of. But the silly Yanks just like to change names for things, just like us silly Europeans like to change names for things. So over there it might be called The Last Apprentice, so don't get confused, it's the same book. In this book, we follow a lad named Tom, and Tom is becoming a Spooks Apprentice. How brilliant! How brilliant is that title? It totally goes with what we were just talking about. I love it when books do that. But anyway, he is becoming a Spooks Apprentice. And what is a spook, you may ask? A spook is a man that takes on the dark. Because in this world, there is magic, there is mystery, there is all different things that go bump in the night, and we, as spooks, have to put a stop to it. The only job requirement to be a spook is to be the seventh son of a seventh son, and that grants the ability to be left-handed. For some reason, all of them are left-handed. And you also get a second sense, well, a sixth sense, I should say, to the darkness. You can sense when things are malevolent and things are bad nearby. And that's about it. That's all you get. But don't be fooled. This is a world filled with magic and monsters and witches and warlocks. But the spook has none of those abilities. Instead of being a whimsical and fantastic world like Harry Potter, where the wizards can just make up any old spell and get out of any old situation by just using magic, the spook relies on tools, proven scientific things that actually help defeat the dark, like salt or iron or rowan wood or silver. Now these things accompanied with their brain is how they get through all of these situations. They don't get a deus ex machina of, I'll just say Expelliarmus and then something flies out of my wand and it just saves the day. No, they have to think and logic their way out of their problems. So Tom is becoming a spook. He is being apprenticed to a Mr. John Gregory, who is considered to be the best spook in the county. And he is taking on Tom as his last apprentice. That's why it's called The Last Apprentice in the US. It all makes sense. Names and being in the book. That's one of my joys in life. But anyways, he is training, and the first thing that he has to do is confront his own fears. So he spends the night in a haunted house where he has to confront the ghasts that live there and see if he can go down into the basement and be in the darkness, even though he knows from piecing it together that the ghast that lives here was digging a grave to put him inside of it. Now, this is quite scary, and most of these books are fairly scary. In fact, there is even a warning on the back that says, "Do not read after dark," because there's a lot of dark material in here. Now, being wet behind the ears, Tom makes a lot of mistakes, including befriending a girl named Alice who has pointy shoes, which will become more important as I tell this story. Now, Alice is the daughter of a witch, Bony Lizzie, and she tricks Tom into making a promise to deliver some food to another witch, which is bound in Gregory's house. Now, this witch is still alive, and she's living in a grave underneath the ground, which is inhumane, to be sure, but she is evil, and that is the way that spooks deal with this. But Tom doesn't really agree, so he gives her some cakes, just nice nice edible cakes in order to give her some strength back, just to be nice and jolly. This backfires, as you can imagine, as she gets too strong and breaks out of her pit. And now, not only does Tom have to deal with this witch, Mother Malkin, but then he has to also deal with Bony Lizzie. He has to deal with Alice. He has to deal with any other things that are going to be coming after him. And as he learns, something is coming after him, and even goes to his household home in order to attack him there. So he must protect them. All of this is going down, and all of this happens in this book. There are quite a few twists, there are quite a few turns. When you think he's going to be doing something, he doesn't. He fights something else. The two main bad guys in this book are Bony Lizzie and Mother Malkin, which is funny because he's actually studying boggarts and they're witches, so most of the stuff he doesn't even know about. Talk about frustrating. But all of this comes to a nice conclusion where there's 13 books in the series and Tom's the main character in all of them, so you know that at least he will survive. But there's a lot of mysteries set up in this first book. He is a seventh son of a seventh son, to be sure, but his mum is also his mother, which makes sense, but she has these weird things about her. She doesn't really like going outside in daylight. She is a fantastic midwife. She has a strange silver chain, and she also wrote to John Gregory. 13 John Gregory. I totally screwed up his name. His name is John Gregory, but she wrote to him 13 years prior to the book, saying that Tom has been born and he will be your last apprentice and he will be the best apprentice you've ever had. Which, of course, peeves off the spook because he doesn't believe in prophecy. But the fact that she did this and that she keeps saying that Tom is her gift to the county is all really strange. But we don't really find out much about that in this book. We just know it's strange. Now, on Book Club, I'll be mostly talking about books that I like, because that's just how I am. If I don't like something, I usually don't finish it. Like, I don't like Emma by Jane Austen, so I've never finished that book, even though it was required of me to finish my Year 12 or final year school exams. I never even read the book, but still got a decent mark. How's that for studying? But regardless of my own personal stories, this book is very, very good. The reason why I like this book is because it straddles the line between light and dark, and it shows you that the world is full of grey areas. Tom befriends Alice, and we find out that she is the daughter of a witch, but she herself is not a witch just yet. She hasn't finished her training. And she decides that she wants to help Tom. And that is a great dynamic because she has this darkness, this potential to be evil inside of her, but she wants to use it for good, which is definite grey areas. The fact that spooks are the good guys in the books, but everyone sees them as evil because they deal with the dark all the time. The fact that this book uses logic and not magic MacGuffins in order to save the day. I like that as Tom learns things, he puts those into practice and even uses them to fight off something else. He learns that salt and iron can be used against a boggart. So then he puts salt and iron in his pockets to fight a witch because he says to himself, well, they're both from the dark, hopefully this will help. And it does. He shows initiative. He shows the kind of brain and thinking power that would be required in this job. He doesn't just listen to everything his master says and goes, yep, I'm going to take that at face value. He learns and he adapts it in a way to his life that he thinks is worthy. So this book, even though it is the first of the series, it is very intriguing. Everything about this world and about this universe that they're in just comes alive. There is so much to be explored. The fact that magic is bad in this book, and anybody that uses magic is pretty much a bad guy. But that doesn't mean they're using magic for evil. There are benign witches. There are bad magics that you can use for good. which we find out in this book. It's just that being the first book, it's got a lot of the setup. The first half of this book is really for us to learn what it is to be a spook and what it will entail in the future books. There is a lot of world building here. And although it is intriguing, the plot sort of takes a back seat until about halfway through when we finally meet Mother Malkin. So one thing that I will say badly about this is that it does take a little bit longer to get into the main narrative. But that being said, everything leading up to it is fantastically detailed. The fact that Tom has to spend a night in the haunted house is simply fantastic. The imagery that Joseph Delaney uses, the words, the fear, and the primalness of it all, the darkness that you can't escape. There's always going to be darkness in the world. He plays upon that, and he shows you through Tom that it can be not only conquered, but it should be respected. And that is why I recommend the Spooks Apprentice, or the Last Apprentice, whatever you call it, in my book club. So, they also turned this into a film called The Seventh Son, which I haven't seen, but I'm sure one day somebody that looks remarkably handsome, like me, pretty much, will probably do a review on it and cry. But until then, I say, check out this book. Check it out. Tom wants to be the very best, like no spook was before. To catch boggarts is his test. To bind witches is his cause. He will travel across the county, searching far and wide, for the dark shall fear him and the power he has inside. Tom Ward, he's the Spooks Apprentice. Oh, I lost it. Check out the spook.